It's 6:33. I'm going to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could all remain standing. This past week, one of our fellow commissioners, Mr. Joe Subio, passed away. So I'd just like to have a moment of silence to honor him. Thank you. And for the public who is listening right now, Mr. Subio was the epitome of public service and public servant all the way to the end of his life, and we appreciate him and everything he's done for not only law enforcement but our community here in Plymouth Township. So he will be greatly missed, and Godspeed to him. Moving on to the next item. Thank you. Moving on to the next item. Anyone want to make a motion for the approval of the February 2024 minutes? I'm assuming that everybody saw the minutes, received the minutes. Any amendments, additions, or issues with the minutes?
No.
So
I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
okay, I have a motion. Second. I have a second. All in favor to approve the minutes from February? Aye. That's unanimous. And the motion carries. And in absolutely perfect timing, the next agenda item is the update from the police department. That include comments from Chief Merciades, who is present. So I am going to turn the floor over to Chief Merciades.
All right, thank you. Before I get into my presentation that I have shown to some members of council, I just want to, I'll brief you on a few things. One is that Officer Marinello, Tom Marinello, is retiring within another month, and as a result of that, we fairly quickly tried to hire the next person on the list. It was somebody that we wanted to grab last time because she was a terrific candidate, but I just couldn't make it work. But luckily, the Temple Academy is starting in 2 months, so we were able to hire her just this Monday. Megan Wazinski is her name. In fact, she's in the other room with the Citizens Academy, so I'll bring her in here so you guys can get a chance to meet her. She's actually been a nurse for 10 years. She's been teaching for 10 years, nursing. So she's I guess I can't call her a kid because to me she's a kid. But she seems like a really good person, a nice addition. Also, Chris Kearns, one of our officers that we've hired, just turned first class, so that you know, and he also is now being transferred to the detective unit. He had about 7 years, I think, in Philadelphia, where he was working with an anti-crime unit. So he had a lot of good experience, and we always open up those positions for people to interview, and quite a few people did. He just came out as the most adept. In fact, the district attorney's office actually specifically requested him just last month to do a wiretap with them, and he did that for 2 or 3 weeks. So he's got a good reputation. He's aggressive in that he likes to work and he likes to learn new things, so he's going to be a nice addition there. And in addition to that, Sergeant Wilhelm graduated from Northwestern Academy. It's a leadership academy. Karen knows about that. She attended also. It's on par with the FBI National Academy. What's nice about this is 2 things. One is now the National Academy only takes you if you're a lieutenant or above, and that's unfortunate because we have so many sergeants that we're trying to groom because these are all leadership-based things. And the other nice part is that they don't have to leave their families for 2 or 3 months. They do for 2 weeks. They go and they just travel. It's usually in Philadelphia or Bucks County, and then they come back to work for 2 weeks, so they can keep flip-flopping like that for about, half a year, Karen?
Yeah.
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 So that's nice for everybody. It's good for the individual and it's good for the department.
Chief, just one question
Yeah.
before you start. With Officer Kearns being transferred to the detective division, does that increase the size of the detective division, or is he replacing someone?
Actually, right now, we moved him now because he's replacing Detective Ponzak, who's in Somalia for a year and a half. He's actually a colonel a lieutenant colonel in the Army. But when he comes back, it's going to be an addition, because you'll see some of the things. We're so overwhelmed in detectives with some of the statistics. I think not this past year, but the year before, their investigations went up by 50%, which is huge. It went from something like 500 investigations to 750. And 500 is already high for what we have. And these investigations are getting more and more detailed. They need phone downloads. They need videos to be submitted to be reviewed. There's a lot that goes on. So I needed to increase that unit, and it looks like what I'm going to have to do is take somebody away from the highway patrol unit. But we tried to change their schedule there so it wouldn't have as much of an impact. So, you know what? Do you mind just seeing if we can get Megan while I just get this stuff together? Thank you. While we're waiting for them, I only gave these packets out to the members of council and then to you guys. I don't give these out to the public. And there's other groups that I've met with. This is basically the PowerPoint presentation, but it's for you guys to be able to have, to mull over, to take notes, to ask future questions if you want to. There's a police liaison committee within CARSI. I meet with them quarterly. So when I met with them, I went over this. I didn't give it out because I'm trying not to give it to the public, and I don't want to scare people. Some of this stuff, if you don't take it in context, it makes it seem like there's a crime wave. And what I'm trying to explain here is this is more about growth that we really haven't kept up with, but it's natural growth. I mean, there's things happening here that we just have to accommodate. Thanks for coming in, Megan.
Thanks for having me.
I wanted to introduce you to the Civil Service Commission. These are the people that
Hello.
we go to permission to hire, to give tests, to recruit. And Megan's one of our, if she is our newest officer. In fact, she starts the academy in May. So maybe tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan. It's nice to meet you. I was just sworn in on Monday, and this is my first law enforcement position. So I'm brand new to this career. I spent the last 10 years as a registered nurse and paramedic. So I've been back and forth between Pennsylvania and New Jersey. My background is emergency medicine and been on the paramedic unit in Trenton. So very excited to get started.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Why do you want to be a police officer? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so everybody asks that I'm with, and it's a good question. Growing up, both of my grandfathers were police officers. So my mom's father was patrol, NYPD, and my dad's father was a detective in the Bronx. So I grew up kind of doing the, sit on grandpa's lap, hear the stories. My mom always said, oh, don't tell her those stories. She doesn't want to hear that. But I did, and I always loved it. So she kind of steered me in the direction of nursing. Then working with my officer colleagues while in the medic unit, I said, you know what, I think I could give this a try. And that's how it started.
Excellent. Welcome to Plymouth.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you. We don't keep you
Yeah,
from
thank
the
you very
academy.
much.
Thanks, Megan.
It's nice to meet you all.
Nice meeting you. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Where's the...
The clicker?
Oh, there, yeah, I have it. Okay. All right. All right. So, this is something that, when I first became chief, I explained to council that I believe in evidence-based policing. I believe in collecting data, analyzing it, following the trends that are there. I know in the past, and it's not fair to say they weren't doing it correctly. Times have changed. Now we're in an age of progressive policing. But in the past, a chief might come to council and say, I need more people. It's too busy. And that was the extent of what they got. I don't even believe in going to council and necessarily saying I need more people. When I first became chief, I decided to start tracking. In fact, Karen remembers because she was a lieutenant, and we had both been talking about tracking, and the prior administration wasn't a fan of that, so we had to wait until we knew that he was moving out, and then we started inputting all this information into the report writing system that we had, which was meant to track all this data. So I gave it a good 2 years of tracking stuff before I even approached council the first time. And based on what I had, I told them that this is what's happening, these are the trends that are happening. It was basically over a 5-year period. And I gave them my professional opinion of what I need to counter that, because we had gone a quarter of a century in this police department without increasing a single officer. And all of you live in the township, you know how much Plymouth Township has grown. In fact, since they finished the Blue Route over 35 years ago, it's been picking up speed and it's been growing a lot. And at the time, the chairman of council, Chris Monero, even asked me, is this enough? Do you have enough? And I told him, I said, to do this responsibly, I can't just sit here. I'm not playing the game where I ask for 5 and you give me 2. I'm asking for what I think I need, which at the time was 2 officers and a civilian, based on what I'm seeing now. And to do this responsibly, I'm not going to ask you for more, because I want to see where do the trends take us, what's happening in the community and in the nation and the state. So since then, I did another 2 years, because even 1 year is not enough. It might be, it might just be because of something that happened in the nation that skewed some of the data. So you really have to go a little bit further. And actually what I saw concerned me, because not only it continued to increase, but it's been spiking. And just based on we're almost done our first quarter of this year, we're already surpassing what we had last year, which has surpassed the years past. And in talking with some community leaders, and specifically Reverend Alex Evangelista from Church on the Mall, we've dealt with them with the shelter and with Carsey. And I talked to him about some of the things I was trying to do, and he said he thought he would even be more interested if it were like a 10-year span that we showed him to see what's been going on over the last decade. So I incorporated that into what I did here to give you a better idea instead of just the last few years, so you have an idea of what's been happening in this community. So if we go to the first one, I just break it down, and first I'm going to just go over briefly with you guys, but again, you'll have it there. 25 years of township growth, just to show you what's changed in the last 25 years. And to remind you, in the last 25 years, the only thing that's changed in the police department is 2 extra patrol officers and a civilian records clerk, which really has allowed me to have this expand, which has been great. That was my intent. So in that 25 years, we've increased by 6 hotels. 6 out of the 8 hotels are in that time period. Now you'll see that 2 of those hotels, Extended Stay America, are utilized by the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services for government-funded housing assistance for homeless victims of drug dependency and mental illness. And again, while this isn't a negative thing, this isn't even a criminal thing, but it just gives you an idea the calls for service that go up, what more we're being tasked to do, because it's not just a hotel. Now we have people treating hotels like apartments. We have people moving in there in mass. We'll have one hotel room, there might be 4 people that are sharing that to save costs, and a lot of times they're drug dependent or they have other issues, so we're responding there more and more. One of those hotels is also utilized for housing protected witnesses by the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, as well as the District Attorney's offices of Philadelphia, Montgomery, and Chester counties. And we would find that out when we get a call there and find out that there's people being held there under protection because they're witnesses to homicides that happen in the city. So then we're getting family members of the victims or the doer coming out there and threatening them. So again, that added a lot of service calls to what we had to do. In that time period was the Metroplex. Karen remembers we didn't have a Metroplex before then. It was an empty lot with weeds. And you have some major box stores there. In fact, this is where the majority of our calls for commercial service come from, with retail thefts, robberies, that type of thing, more so than the mall. Then, of course, if we go to the next one, in addition to that, at the Plymouth Meeting Mall, even though the inside of the mall, I know that they're trying to get it running again, but they have added some anchor stores there, which has just brought a lot of activity. Legoland, Dave & Buster's, Whole Foods. There's a bunch there, not to mention all the restaurants around there. It's drawn a lot of people with that, and the movie theater. The Proving Grounds. Artist knows the Proving Grounds. She's snarling. But if you don't know that, it's where Tees Golf is. But he's adapted that for fields, a lot of fields. He has property from Conshohocken Road all the way down to Allenwood Road, all that in the middle. I think it's 80 acres, I believe.
About, yeah.
And he's getting people from out of state because now they're coming and playing tournaments there. So again, a lot of activity. Unfortunately, it's also adding a lot of congestion and traffic problems for the people that live in those neighborhoods.
Where is this located?
Conshohocken Road,
Oh, okay.
across from the
Yeah.
Mutual Company.
Gotcha.
It used to just be, you know,
A really
you could
pretty
hit golf balls, and then it's morphed. I know he had big plans for it, and this is, and I believe that he's still planning to do a lot more.
Great.
In addition, in this time span, Amazon, which wouldn't sound like a big deal, it's a 24 operation, but you'd be surprised when our guys are sitting out there, you just see the trucks coming out and coming out and coming out. It adds a lot of congestion, a lot of, again, activity. Not problems, but activity that we have to work with. The Wawa that was put on East Ridge Pike, that's a 24 operation, and that's been very busy for us. A lot of our guys equate that with 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, they go there and it says it looks like South Street. I mean, and what I mean is that's how much activity there is. And something that I threw out to council, and certainly I would throw that out to the Civil Service Commission because it's appropriate. I offered them ride-alongs if they ever want to get an idea of what's happening in the community. People just don't realize it's this community. I'm proud that we've kept it that small town feel, but we have big town problems here, and a lot of that is because of the Turnpike Interchange, which is the busiest in the state, with 5 exits off the Blue Route. That's almost half of the exits dump off into Plymouth Township. So when you build a commercial area with easy access and egress, you have a lot of people visiting it, you have a lot of people coming here to work, and you have a lot of people coming here to steal, commit crimes, and to victimize. So we get a lot of activity. Karen had actually done the study years back, and even back then we had 500,000 people come through this township in a 24-hour period constantly. And we have the license plate readers up at the intersections, and it still counters that. We'll have one intersection, like Ridge and Regal, I was surprised to hear, tell me 60,000 vehicles go through in a 24-hour period. I was even surprised. It's just a lot. In this period, 14 restaurants, 3 marijuana dispensaries, and 2 smoke shops. Again, just more and more activity. And then the last part of the growth is people that come here to live. So we've had 5 single-family developments, 2 apartment complexes, and 5 townhome communities. And they accounted for about 2,000 extra people that live in Plymouth Township. Now this, I think, is just as important, the pending development, things that when I go to the council meetings you see that are on the agenda of what's coming in. One of the things that's coming in that we anticipate is going to be a little problematic, certainly busy, is going to be Royal Farms. And the reason is, first of all, Royal Farms is like that 24-hour Wawa. It's open 24 hours. The difference here is they also have a liquor license. They also sell hot food. They're famous for their fried chicken. So, and they're positioning it at Ridge and Allenwood. That's where Carriage Trade Auto Auction is, which brings in thousands of people on Monday nights, and is it Thursday? I know they have 2 auctions. And they're all from out of state. And basically, people come down there to get fairly cheap rates on cars. You know, you buy them without even being able to start it up. You just look at it. So they're coming in with trailers and everything to take them out. So we have enough problems with that. Now they're all going to be gassing up there. There's liquor there. There's food there. And it's a 24-hour establishment. We're just anticipating that's going to increase activity for us as well. The Metroplex is expanding, which they've made clear before, and this isn't supposed to be the last of their expansion, but they're already planning a box store and a fast food restaurant at that location. The Plymouth Meeting Mall is in the works of putting 2 separate apartment complexes, one a 300-unit complex, the other 142 unit complex. At Ridge and Chemical, that intersection, if you know, we have our district justice there. There's a gas station at the corner, so behind there's a development. BET Investments is proposing a 200-unit apartment there with a high-end grocery store that they wanted to keep hush-hush, but everybody seems to know it's Trader Joe's, which is a big attraction. It's not a problem area, but it attracts people, and they want to put additional retail space there. And Plymouth Ridge Corporate Center, which is used to be called Plymouth Woods. It's next to Sussex Square apartment complex, if you're familiar with that area. They're proposing a 310-unit apartment complex. There's also another hotel proposed on Corson's Lane. And some of the biggest stuff is the road improvement projects. There's the Ridge Pike Improvement Project, Lafayette Street Extension Project with the county, and also the interchange project with the Turnpike Commission, where they're talking about putting slip ramps from the Turnpike onto Conshohocken Road. So again, it's going to bring a lot more activity in this area. And that has been a problem for that whole community there, because people live there and you're putting highway traffic through a residential area. Drop my gum before Karen makes me swallow it. So,
This is a lot.
it is a lot. That's and the pending, and you can even find the people that come to make their proposals. I think they said each unit on average is 2.5 people per unit. So this is another 2,000 people they're talking about moving in here, and that's not even the problem. The people that move in here, it's that you have all these people move in here. And now their cars on the road, the congestion, the fact that these are all potential victims of anything. It could be of a scam. It could be of a rear-end collision. It just adds activity. So now you're talking 2,000 have come in the last so many years, and now you're talking about another 2,000 proposed to come in the next few years. Okay, so going to our data-based policing. This is the officer-involved activity that I explained to you. And here we do I'm doing 10-year charge for all of these. You can see things were fairly static there for quite a while until we got to about that age of COVID. There were some social justice movements, and those are the only 2 major things that I can think of nationwide that propelled this to increase. One of the things that I think in our area, or at least Montgomery County, that had this propelled this to increase was bail reform that was part of the social justice movement. And when I talk about bail reform throughout here, again, I keep saying a lot of these things I'm talking about aren't bad things. So bail reform in and of itself was a positive thing, but these are some of the issues that came from it. And some of it, especially in the business community, they've been, they've found a lot of challenges with this, because it's hit them the hardest. People are in and out constantly, and when we go there, they literally tell us, these people were here yesterday, and they were here the day before. They don't just get out, but they keep hitting the same establishments, and then they don't show up for court. A lot of them, and I'll talk about this later, are organized groups that come from out of state. Some of them aren't even from the country. And I'm not talking about illegals. I'm talking about people that are purposely brought in so that if and when they get caught, they can send them back, and then they get fresh people. So basically there's no consequences. They don't have to worry about you got caught. You're still making bail, and you can go. And we're finding a lot of that, especially in the Metroplex. But as you can see here, we've had a 75% increase just over the last 5 years in activity with the same resources. This has been a difficult one, and this one I'm pretty much convinced it's a result of the bail reform that we did. It started in 2020, and we've had an 81% increase in arrests. Now, we used to be, for the most part, in that 800 arrests per year range, and here we are now in the 1,200 area. We're already on pace. I know it's early, but when we get the quarter finished, we're on pace for about 1,400 arrests this year. And we actually take pride in not seeking arrests, not targeting, not looking for people to do something wrong. That's not what we're about. That's not what we look to do. We actually got rid of aggressive units like that were here from our predecessors, where they would seek out violations or look for certain crimes, which were usually low-level drug crimes. We did away with that stuff. We weren't interested. We did away with, there used to be, whether it was stated or not, quota systems of how many traffic citations you were supposed to make a month, or you weren't doing your job. And we made it clear when I came into office that, first of all, we're not looking to hurt anybody. We're looking to save lives or help people. You're not being graded or given any extra credit for getting more tickets. And I would just as soon that you give warnings and make stops if you find it necessary, because we found that the result is the same. If people see police out there, if they see people pulled over, they slow down. And it just has to be consistent. Giving somebody a $200 ticket because you have to get 10 for the month is ridiculous. It's wrong. So we got away from that, and those traffic citation numbers came way down as a result. And yet, as we followed these kind of things, accidents didn't go up. So we didn't do anything that jeopardized anybody. We just aren't looking. So the same goes for criminal arrests. We're not looking for somebody to do something wrong. We changed the way we do juvenile arrests, where we divert as many juveniles as we can to the youth aid panel, to any kind of group. We try and get together with different groups or churches that they are here to help kids. So again, we're not looking to hurt anybody. I know, in fact, it was Karen and I who were juvenile officers together. I looked through some of those annual reports back then. We used to have 250 juvenile arrests a year. Now we might have 35, or the ones that you have to. And even those go to a juvenile court system where it's designed to have the kid make better choices, not to hurt him, not to incarcerate him. But I remember taking kids up to the detention center quite often in the middle of the night. And it's amazing when you realize that, that's how much things have changed. But it's a mindset, and you have to change your mindset.
Chief, I have a quick question about your total arrests. And you reference bail reform and stuff like that. Do you track the rearrests? So if you arrest somebody in Plymouth, do you track whether or not you rearrest them in this?
I didn't do it in here, but we would have that in our system, because it would show. I think I would just have to figure out how it would be possible to do without actually putting a specific name in. So
right.
If I know that so-and-so gets arrested all the time, I could put his name in and say, yes,
right.
He's been arrested 10 times. I don't know how I'd be able to tell you, out of the 1,218 arrests, 200 of them are habitual offenders.
Right.
But we can certainly look and see, because we're always looking to see how we can do more and more with the system that we have.
I guess it's not an Excel sheet type thing where you can.
No, I mean, we've done quite good with it, but we have now 2 full-time people that all they do is this type of stuff. But it helps us not only for things like this, but we do this monthly, so that we can give it to patrol officers. We can tell them we want them to concentrate their efforts, what types of things, what types of areas, what times of the day or night to concentrate these things. So it's a terrific help. I mean, when I first became chief and I interviewed for the position, the thing I based everything I did there and everything I've done since, it was the 6 pillars of progressive policing. When you have experts put that all together, that was, President Obama had a whole task force put together, and it laid everything out to do things the right way. And that's pretty much how we operate here. And I think you'll see a lot of these things. So going over the UCR Part 1 offenses, for those that might not know, the UCR is a Uniform Crime Reporting System. And Part 1 offenses are, and these are all put together by the FBI. It's nationwide. They gather the information from all departments. And Part 1 offenses are what they deem serious crimes. And I list what they have down there serious, which are homicides, rapes, robberies, aggravated assault, burglaries, those types of things. I mean, for what you all are probably used to of what Plymouth Township is, 127% increase in serious crimes in only 3 years bothers me. It should bother anybody. These are the types of statistics that I'd rather not just show to the general public, because it's not meant to scare anybody. And again, it's not because we're in the middle of some kind of crime wave. It's because, and we can't stop it, we have more and more commercial businesses coming in. So with that, you might have more shoppers, people might make more money, the taxes might go down more, but also, correspondingly, crime is going to increase. I mean, that's just part of it.
Chief, can you explain the difference in the chart before that? There was, in 2023, 1,218 arrests, but then there's 1,142 Part 1 offenses from the same year. Does that mean there's only been a 50 or 100 non-UCR 1?
When it says that it was an offense, that means we might go somewhere and they say I was robbed, but nobody was
There's no
arrested
arrest.
for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is just basically what this and the next chart is, which is Part 2 offenses, were the lesser serious. That would be considered your crime rate, essentially, because it means anything except for a township ordinance is listed here. So those two numbers will equate to your crime rate, which I'm going to also explain later on when I also do a comparison with our neighboring municipalities. So you also get an idea that this isn't just in some parts of the nation a problem, but this is specifically a problem here in Plymouth Township because of our makeup and not for our neighbors because of their makeup. And I'll explain that a little bit further.
I have a question
Yeah.
on the, where you have what the different crimes are. Are there specific categories that are more of this than other things? Because I
No.
know it's like equal. I mean,
As far as they're concerned, they just consider all of these a Part 1 offense. So it could have been 1,142 homicides, or it could have been 1,142 burglaries. So it's just each one basically gets one check. It doesn't matter which one of those crimes. Is that what you're asking?
yes, which one of these crimes are the most problem?
Yeah, anecdotally, I mean, obviously, probably not homicides. Probably
Yeah,
applies
I
to
mean,
it,
I could tell you from because we know, because this isn't such a big area like Philadelphia where I'd have to go to my charts. It's not homicides. Routinely, we get, maybe one homicide a year. Sometimes you might get 2 or 3. Sometimes you might go 2-3 years without a homicide. But on average, I've been here for 35 years. I'd say we've had about, would I'm correct, 30, 35, almost one a year it averages out to. So that's not problematic, really. Rapes have been increasing with the increase of the hotels, but nothing that's necessarily problematic because it's unfortunate, but it's not something that's happening out in the open where it's a public safety problem. It's something you really don't have that kind of control. It's not, I could have 100 police officers and I probably wouldn't be able to bring those numbers down.
Yeah.
Robberies aren't a huge problem. They increase, but you're still only talking about one every other week, maybe one every 3 weeks. Aggravated assaults, you're going to see our assaults have been going up. Burglaries, we've been able to keep a lid on, but there's a reason I've been able to keep a lid on it, and I'll show you that later on also. Motor vehicle thefts have been going up quite a bit. So it's a little bit of everything there, minus the most violent crimes. So looking at the next one, again, this is what the FBI puts together, and they consider these less serious, and you can see some of the offenses there. Still things that the average person would be concerned about: drug offenses, sex crimes, assaults, forgeries, frauds. That went up 34%, which wasn't terrible, but you see that it went up sharply in 1 year. Now, again, that was the year that we had bail reform. I can't tell you for a certainty that's the reason. It's the only thing I've been able to equate it with. And then it pretty much leveled off. But it leveled off at a higher level than it had for all those years passed. So it's still a problem for
Did
us.
the whole pandemic and everyone being home and around their neighborhoods and not away at work, do you think that had anything to do with any of this increase?
It shows here in one of my, actually, I think it was in the beginning. If you just look at officer-involved activity, that was the only one that went down in 2020 by about 4,000 calls. And I think the reason was being highly commercial. All the businesses shut down, SEPTA stopped coming through here, people were going to work from home, school from home. And ironically, though, all of our other crimes continued. It's just we didn't have people on the street. So I think it was all traffic related, basically. Car crashes, that kind of stuff. Yeah, the domestics definitely increased during that time because everybody was stuck at home with each other. So again, I showed you that the UCR Part 2 went up and have stayed at that level now. So again, for us, problematic because that's essentially our crime rate has hit a different plateau and has stayed there now for a few years. Here's one of the things I told you about that our courts are concerning. It gives you an idea of how the flavor of the township has changed a bit. I mean, here we have a 172% increase in assaults over 5 years. And again, those numbers aren't staggering. If you look at the high number of 82, it's nothing that we can't handle. But when you were level at 20-some assaults for a decade, and now all of a sudden you're at a whole new plateau, it just adds. There's a few things in here that add to what our officers have to do and why we have to start bolstering them. This next one is one of those things, domestic disputes. It's one of the most dangerous things officers have to do because you go there, and even though you're going maybe because one person is being assaulted by the other partner, the victim then turns on the police because they didn't mean for the other spouse to go to jail, or they need that income, or they changed their mind. But we went to a whole new plateau from about the 300 range. Now we're approaching the 500 range. It's a lot to do, and it certainly necessitates more than one officer. Sometimes it needs more than 2 or 3, depending on what happens. But that's been a 60% increase, and that's one of the ones you'll see started to rise in 2019. And that's because a lot of people still are working from home. So I think that's one of the reasons it's remained a problem. This is one of the ones that the business community is most concerned about, and these numbers are already continuing to climb because, like I said, we chart month to month. So we went from the 200 range in 2020, and in only 3 years, we're in the mid-700s, and we're already projecting to be in the 8 to 900s for this year. Not only the numbers have increased, but the complexity has increased. You go to these stores, and it's not somebody stole a jacket or a couple pairs of jeans. It's that they stole $10,000 worth of merchandise, or it's organized gangs. One example that I give is only 2-3 weeks ago at the Metroplex, and this is still fairly often. We've gotten to the point now where we have our detectives split up some of those box stores because they're so busy. And we'll tell the box stores, you call me, the detective, on my cell phone directly when you're spotting somebody and they're committing a crime, so we can start to get our people around there. And the reason we do that is because it's not one person anymore. What they've actually fashioned themselves after is what the drug trade was like in the 90s, where they used to have spotters at the corners and lookouts and people that would let you know, and getaway cars. So this latest one was at Target, and we went there, and I think there was 5 or 6 people. One was at the business across the street, and they're all on cell phones, and when they would pick up the phone, because one detective was watching, the other detective inside would say, oh, she just answered her phone. They're letting her know, I see police. Then there's a getaway car who goes and parks somewhere. So they're all coordinating. They're like, go out this entrance because they're coming in this entrance. Now, we got all 5 of them, but they had done thousands of dollars worth of damage. They had just come from the Target in Upper Merion, because now they start to pass it along to each other. They've been to others, and these were some of the people. They said they got us yesterday for this amount. So now for them, the security guards, they start to recognize their faces. It happens so often. But now we have multiple offenders. We have to secure video. We have to take all their cell phones, and we do cell phone downloads, which all necessitate search warrants. there's a lot that goes into this, and you can't not do it because these businesses are taking such a loss, and they're really getting frustrated. And it's very little for us to do. Some of the things I want to do for this, but I don't have the people, is I want to start creating zones of the Metroplex, create a zone for the mall. I don't think I need a separate zone for Plymouth Square, but I could include a few different shopping centers along Ridge Pike, where you have an officer that's where they are. They park their car, they walk from store to store, they hand out their business card, they say, I'm working here from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. Anything happens. What I was planning on doing is even buying more department cell phones and saying, if you're working that zone, this is your cell phone. Write it on the back of your business card when you see them. Say, call me at this number. I'm right here. I'm here. So you have the officer's car parked there. You'll have him walking from business to business. If it's not at least a deterrent, at least we can get on top of these things quicker. So it's some of the same kind of stuff that we've already started with the communities, where the more we're in the communities we find, the more traffic details we do, the more burglaries come down. And I've seen it specifically as we don't have enough people to do those details, burglaries start to go up. And I think it's as simple as you're seen. You're static in a special area, so as opposed to me driving past a bunch of different houses, if I'm static, everybody who comes through that neighborhood sees there's a police car there. So if you're there to case a house, if you're there to do something wrong, I hate to say it, but you're going to go to another neighborhood, you're going to go to another township. So it's a simple philosophy, but you need numbers. I've tried to do it with decoy cars, but people they catch on. We even had a chief once, which I thought was ingenious. He put a mannequin and dressed it up as a police officer. We actually had somebody call and said there's a police officer sleeping in his car and banging on the window. But the thing is, people find out, you try all kinds of tricks, but at the end, this is a people job. Sometimes you just need extra people.
Chief, has there been any discussion with the retail management companies to give you a workspace like a police substation?
A lot of them have offered, but unfortunately I don't have the people to put in there. But they have offered, and I've actually gone and I've spoken in front of the Chamber of Commerce, Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce, and we talked about these things, got their input, explained to them the kinds of things that they need to do to help us do our job. Because a lot of these people are scared, not scared so much of getting hurt, they're scared of getting sued. Mm-hmm. So they've told their employees, and I don't blame the employees either. I mean, they're getting paid $15 an hour. How much am I going to get involved in here when people have no problem with shoving you out of the way or hitting you or bulldozing you to get out of there? So they tell their people, don't confront anybody. A lot of times these businesses say don't call the police, because a police response lets other shoppers know there's a problem there, and then they start to stay away. So it's a tough time for them. They just don't. That's why we started giving them our detectives' cell phone numbers. So it's an unmarked car, it's an unmarked police officer. Whatever we have to do to accommodate those problems, we'll do. But they are very frustrated. But yes, they have offered those types of things. Church on the Mall has offered it. Target has offered it. And I would love to take advantage of that, especially if I have somebody in the zone there. I would never have them leave to come back and do reports. Do it there. Again, your car is right there. It's good protection for them. Motor vehicle thefts, which has been surprising. We've seen a pretty big increase in this. Again, the numbers aren't crazy, but it's the same kind of thing. It's organized groups that have been coming from places like Delaware, because they'll take the cars back to the docks. But to give you an idea how this has been for us.
Sorry.
Do I get a 30-minute breather? It's like round one?
No, that's my pension check hitting my bank.
Oh, I see.
It's smaller ring, right?
Yeah. So these motor vehicle thefts aren't like you would think. I came out of the mall. I mean, that happens too, but I come out of the mall, my car's not there. We have, at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, an officer gets an alarm at one of these car dealerships, and they're responding. And as they're driving to the alarm, a car crashes out of the gate, and then 6 cars just come out going every different direction
Oh,
on Ridge
God.
Pike. So
No
they're
way.
all, oh yeah. So the one that crashes through the gate, they don't care that it's ruined because it's not my car. It's another stolen car. And now you got one officer who responded for an alarm, and 6 people going in 6 different directions. If you get one person, you're lucky. And I think you can appreciate we're not chasing people unless you badly assaulted somebody or did something of violence where you're a risk to the community. I'm not chasing you if you stole a car because God forbid you kill yourself, you kill somebody else, you hurt somebody. What was that justification for a car? And people know this because we have more and more people not stop for us in general. So those cars, they're done. They know it. They're gone unless they happen to crash when they're leaving or they get out and run. That's over with. So again, 135% increase. That's been a concern for the dealerships. I mean, it's not just the cars, but it's their property, their gates. Years ago, somebody drove right through the plate glass window of Porsche Audi. So, I mean, how do you counter that kind of stuff?
So these numbers, like I know 47 is a relatively small number,
Mhm.
but would we say the commercial, I guess, dealership, is that half of them, 10% of them, or I mean, versus like the neighborhood?
I would
driveway?
say, what do you think, about half? Because
Yeah.
when they get hit, more cars get taken.
The majority, I would say, that we're having is 2 different things. It's the dealership, and we'll have a group of people go through apartment complexes in the middle of the night. So, because there's a large volume of cars there, just like a car dealership, there's a whole parking lot of cars. So, between those 2 areas, I would say that's probably 95% of our car thefts.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it's usually because they're looking for a certain type. Like there's a supply and demand. So you go through a apartment complex because you have a large variety, but you know what you're looking for. Somebody wants this type of car, and that's what they do. So if we go to the next one, these are some of the challenges that we've come up against, which again aren't necessarily problematic, but we're not getting much support from the county. And I'm not even saying it's because the county doesn't want to, but either the money's not there, but there's no facilities, there's no places to house anybody, there's no places to treat anybody. So 103% increase in mental health involvement is a lot. I mean, we encounter people, and it's necessitated a lot for us. A lot of our de-escalation skills and training have to do with things like this. It's not so much when you encounter somebody violent. It's when you encounter somebody who doesn't quite understand what you're saying or doesn't know how to act properly, or so that you don't overreact because somebody's challenging you, but you realize that they're not meaning to hurt you. They're just not understanding the dynamic of what's going on. So it's a lot more training for our officers. But at the end of the day, we don't have anybody to go to. We do use mobile crisis, they're called. They'll come out to the people that are there are very good, and they do care and they do come, but they're few and far between. To give you an example of a mental health problem, and this is not unusual at all for us, our cell block was shut down for a month because of construction, and we had to use white marshes. And I think the weekend that we opened up on a Friday. By that Saturday, we had somebody hang themselves in our cell. Now, we were able to cut them down before they truly hurt themselves or were at risk of dying because the dispatcher saw it on video, and we had them sent. We took them up to the building 50. In less than 2 hours, they called us. We're done with him. He's not a threat to himself. Come pick him up. So we had to, basically after that, we picked him up. We have him processed at the prison, and he's turned over to the prison, and he's left there to get arraigned eventually. This isn't unusual at all. We've had people where officers have gone, a woman, just a resident, threatening to kill herself. We're there with mobile crisis. They tell us we don't think she's a threat. Even if we're not comfortable, they say, you're not needed here anymore. She's not a threat. The next day, in this case, she hung and killed herself. It's tough for the officers that have to deal with this too. But the truth of the matter is the onus falls on us. We still have to deal with this to the best of our ability and find places. Sometimes we'll take them further out if we can, but Where do you go? Philadelphia doesn't have the resources for this. They're overwhelmed already. And Montgomery County hasn't done it. And this is only one of the problems. So it's not even like you could say, Montgomery County, concentrate your efforts here. Because if you go to the next one, that's probably even a bigger problem. Is the unhoused problem. And here we've had a 217% increase in just 3 years. So when we were in the high teens for years, we're approaching 100 already here in Plymouth Township, which is probably not something that the average resident here thinks is a problem. It is. There's a couple reasons for it. One of the reasons is there are no county facilities available. Another reason is, and I don't look to badmouth anybody, but Norristown took a different tact toward all this, and they almost outlawed homelessness. They made it a criminal offense, and they make their police move them. If you're staying from 7 at night to 7 in the morning in one area, you're violating their ordinance, and they're literally sweeping them out of there.
And they do what? They go where?
Well, where they're pretty much going, for a lot of them are going to, they're sleeping behind our Wawa. It's like a little tent city.
Oh, yeah.
They're back there, they're going on the bike path, which then causes problems back there. And again, it's not criminalizing them. Sometimes they're the victims. A lot of these homeless people we find are carrying weapons, whether it's a knife, whether it's mace, whether it's a gun. But a lot of times it's because they're out there in the elements and they're victimized or they're robbed. Another place that we have a lot of homeless lately is at the mall. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that SEPTA is there. So, we tried to work something out with SEPTA because we thought that they offered rides to people that couldn't afford to pay. When we clarified it, what they said is if somebody gets on the bus and they don't have the money, we won't forcibly eject them. So if it's different than saying they're offering rides as opposed to we won't throw them off. So people come to the mall, especially now that they know that there's a Code Blue shelter there, and they'll stay there as long as they can. So during the day, now they'll go into the mall, which again is not a crime, but we get kickback from the businesses there because they say, I have people coming out of the bathrooms telling me you have somebody bathing in your sink. Or I have people that are sleeping in my vestibule and urinating on my Mac machine, or sleeping in the food court. And again, we feel for people like that. We do whatever we can. We certainly don't come there and arrest anybody or cite anybody or tell somebody you have to get out of here. We find out, have you eaten? Do you need a place to stay? But it's frustrating when you can't find a place to stay. And we've been working with the mall too, but I'm truly afraid that I think there's new management coming in that they're going to wind up booting the shelter out of Church on the Mall or just not renewing Church on the Mall's lease because they give them $1 a year lease and they haven't renewed their contract yet. And I can't say that for a certainty, but even the Reverend is said he's moving on because his parishioners say they want a part-time person now, which is going to make it more difficult to do that. Because we're getting 30 people will stay at those Code Blue shelters. I think before the shelter actually opened, we had 2 people. One was in Plymouth and one was in Norristown the same weekend, literally froze to death. I mean, that's, you would think that's unheard of. I mean, it's tough enough if you hear that it happened on the streets of Philadelphia, but you don't think that that's happening right down the street from where you are. That's crazy. So these are, again, problems that we don't just go there for a call. I have somebody here at my store and I don't want them there. We're going there and we're trying to find out, what do you need? Because you can't just tell them, just start walking down the road. Where can I take you? Finding a place to take them. Our officers routinely take money out of their pocket. I mean, anybody would, to get them something to eat, to find. When we do have people from the county come out, and again, I know they're good-hearted and they're doing the best they can. Before our shelter opened up, they would come out with a sleeping bag and say, this is the best I can do. Sleep outside in this sleeping bag. When it's 20 degrees out and that's the best you can do, it's not their fault, but it needs to be addressed, and it's not. So in the meantime, it falls on us, and I just need people. I just need people. This is a people business. That's what it comes down to. It's not difficult, but you have to have the resources. And with that, I wanted to show that one of the things that we take pride in, sometimes it's not enough, are our traffic details. And for two reasons. One is, because this is essentially a quality of life issue, and it's an issue that most of our residents have a problem with, whether it's stop signs, whether it's speeding, whether it's I want to be able to walk in my neighborhood, walk my dog, my kids are riding their bike, anything. You just want, this is your little piece of the world, and you just want to be able to relax and not have, people cutting through and speeding and all that congestion. So over the last 5 years, we've increased these details by 344% because we do find that they're important. And you'll see sometimes they take a nosedive there. Sometimes those nosedives are because, like right now, in my whole traffic safety unit, I have one sergeant and one officer, where it used to be a 5-person unit. So it gets difficult to do these things. And then, of course, we find when our numbers are higher, our burglaries keep going down consistently every year. If one's up, the other one's down. So there's, dual reason. Both come down to quality of life issues. Nobody wants to have to worry about their house or their street. But I still need people to continue doing these things. It gets more and more difficult. So this is just to give you an idea of what it is with our neighboring municipalities. These first sheets here are what I've talked to you essentially about bail reform. These are arraignments in Montgomery County. So these are the top 10 right here. We're number 2. Now, number 2 in how many crimes we arraign. They arraign serious crimes. They arraign misdemeanor of the 1st degree and then all felonies, 3rd, 2nd, 1st degree. So it's serious crimes get arraigned. So we're arraigning the second most in the county in serious crimes, more than Norristown, more than Lower and Upper Merion, which are much bigger, more than Cheltenham and Abington, which border the city. If you can go, and I also, under a lighter highlight, are the neighboring municipalities, so it gives you a better idea of who we're around and how their numbers differ from us.
Now, is that because you're doing a better job?
Honestly, I think for a lot of reasons, I'll tell you some. You'll see that when I do these comparisons, we have more serious crimes than Norristown does. Now, Norristown has a lot of quality of life crimes. They have things out in the open. You'll notice that for Part 2 offenses, they said drug offenses, sex offenses. Norristown has a lot of that. They have it out in the open where they see it and they deal with it. So their Part 2 offenses are higher than ours. But serious crimes, though, they do get more murders than we do, but each murder counts for 1. So if you had 3 or 4 murders in Norristown, that'd be a lot. That still only counts for 3 or 4 Part 1 crimes. So we have more of those than they do.
Okay.
We have more than anybody than Pottstown. You take a look at White Marsh and Whitpain and Conshohocken, who we surround. Their numbers are, an eighth of what ours are? Some are a tenth.
Now, do we know things like population and also number of officers? See, Pottstown has, of course, more than us, but they also have twice the amount of population or a number of officers more?
They have more of a population that lives there. It's more congested. We have more people that come through. Pottstown has a lot of violent crime, and that's why their numbers are so high. In fact, you'll see the bail reform has been going on for 2 years. I did a 2-year chart, and both years Pottstown was number 1, and both years we were number 2. It's been fairly consistent, and nothing's really changed with how that is. All the townships that surround us, for the most part, are bedroom communities. East Norton is a little bit different because they have some commercial, but not a lot. White Marsh is a bedroom community. Whitpain is. Conshohocken is very small, and what businesses they have are mostly restaurants. Upper Merion is surprising, but you'll see with their Part 2 crimes, which would be the retail thefts, they skyrocket because of that mall. But overall, you see that essentially we're the ones running back and forth to the prison more than anybody except for Pottstown. And it just...
Does this go back to location again? Because I would think Cheltenham, which is right there, but there don't have that kind of access.
No, they don't. And I think a lot of it is, it's not so much that they're so close to the city. It's two things, I think. One, that our what we're built up as is a highly commercial area, and that's one thing. It's an attraction. And I think the other thing is the ease to get here. It's the highways. There's a lot. Because we don't just get, if you looked at the annual report, I actually broke down where our arrests came from. I think the most, 400 or 500 of them were from Philadelphia. But we still get people from New York City we'll have here. With those LPRs, those license plate readers that we have, we'll frequently get a hit. We usually don't get these people, they just go through, but they'll say, there's a car, it's wanted in connection with a kidnapping in New York or for a carjacking in New York, coming right through, our township, right down Ridge Pike. So we actually see a lot of people from out of state come through here. When I went to the FBI National Academy, I had people from Delaware when I said I was from Plymouth Township. You think, what are they going to say? I knew Plymouth Township because they always see Plymouth Meeting on the highway signs from Delaware when they. So it's known. Here I just give you a sample of our neighboring municipalities. So you see that we're higher than anybody that we surround. If you go to the next one, it just gives you the last 2 years that they've had this bail reform, that it's been consistent. Our numbers went up, so did everybody else's, but we still stayed within the same ranking. I put this there because I told you before, Part 1 and Part 2 is essentially your crime rate total. So you can see where the neighboring municipalities are compared to us, and who do we most compare with? Norristown and Upper Merion. Well, Norristown and Upper Merion each have 50% more police officers than we do. So we're handling the same amount of crime as two other departments that have 50% more police officers. And a place like Upper Merion, I know because I've tracked, where I can, they've increased over the last 14 years by 10 officers. So they've made a concerted effort over the years to keep in step with their growth. And that's something that we haven't done, and that we need to start playing catch up. I mean, we're at a boiling point now that if we don't do it, again, it's not meant to scare anybody. It's not going to be a lawless place. It just gets harder and harder. At some point, you have to start cutting back whatever services you offer to handle the most serious stuff. And some of the lesser services are some of the things that our residents like the most. They're the quality of life things. So we're hard pressed to do that, but we're getting there. The next one just gives you an idea of our arrests. So again, even compared to Upper Merion, that's got the second largest mall in the country, we have 250 more arrests a year than they do. Norristown still has more. It's mostly their Part 2 crimes, and they are very busy. But look at some of the ones that we compare to. I joke around. I said we used White Marsh's cells for the month of January. They had 156 arrests all year. For this month of January, when we used their cells, we had 133 or 139 arrests. They couldn't wait to get us out of there. But just to give you an idea, we're right next to each other. Our kids all go to the same school, and yet they're completely different. They're run completely different because there's different needs. Gives you an idea of the domestics we have. I mean, more than over 100 more than Norristown has. Again, it's just the call volume and the types of calls that we handle. Retail thefts is one of the biggest ones. Now, granted, Upper Merion has more, but again, I remind you, they have the second largest mall in the country, and yet there are only 140 more retails than we have. I mean, you compare it to Conshohocken with 4, or White Marsh with 17. I mean, it's time consuming. It takes a lot.
The retail thefts, that's primarily the Metroplex and the mall. Is that accurate?
Primarily.
And how does that split? Are we talking the mall, a big one, versus is it 50-50 or?
The Metroplex, I would think, has to have the majority in our township. What, 60-70% of all
the
of them?
Metroplex is a lot more busier.
Okay.
I always equate it, like you look at where people shop, the same places that people shop, that's where people steal, because that's the stores people want.
I mean, there's a lot of different stores there, and for criminals they're situated literally across the street from an entrance onto the Blue Route. So they leave the exit and they go right across Chemical Road, right on, and they're gone. And when we have at least attempted to stop them, not pursue them, they'll be going down the Blue Route, and you see clothing flying out of the car, like let's leave us alone. Here's the. I mean,
I was
how
just
do
curious
you?
the status of the mall moving forward. I mean, we all know something's going to happen eventually with that, and how would that impact you? I mean, so it sounds like the Metroplex is a huge part of it.
The Metroplex is tough. The mall we're getting more and more there. Believe it or not, from the restaurants, we get a lot of problems in the restaurants. Disturbances. That's where a lot of the homeless people will go, and then either the patrons or somebody gets upset. And those aren't even cases where I don't think we've yet to make an arrest because it's not a criminal offense. But you still have to go, and they're still upset. I mean, the homeless people are upset too. I mean, they're embarrassed, or they might be mentally ill, or they say, I'm not allowed to go in here and get a Coke. I mean, somebody else might be able to do it. Why can't I do it? So it's just service. I tried to give you an idea of, call volume and the things we do. This actually for us is low this year, and I think it just equates to all the construction that we have. Nobody can move, which as far as accidents go might be a good thing because you can't get in an accident, I hope, if you're going 5 miles an hour, but usually we're in the 1100 range, which is more on par with the top departments. And then driving under the influence. It's just, again, this is something that we deal because we have a lot of people come through. So you see that our numbers are high there, and quite honestly, they would be higher if we had more resources, but I just don't have enough officers. Again, we don't look for people, we don't sit outside of bars, but because we have these highways and we have a lot of people come through, we just have a higher number of DUIs than another area would. I was surprised at Conshohocken, with all those bars, they had 3 DUIs.
They usually get to us.
Yeah, I guess they get to us
just come
first.
Yeah.
So this just lets you know what proposals I was making to council. That I wasn't looking for any bells and whistles, anything fancy, any special units. What we need basically is meat and potatoes. I needed to bolster every squad. I needed to add an officer to every squad. And some of the reasons are simple. You don't have all those people. You never have all those people. You have vacation time, holiday, injured on duty, sick, training. You just don't have them. So I need more people, not only to answer all these calls, but to actually help some of the people that we're coming in contact with more and more. Are mentally ill, the unhoused. It just takes more time. It takes more resources. And I'm also looking so that, because adding this one detective is a stopgap measure, but it's not going to be enough, I'm looking for a civilian investigator that can help not only our detective unit, but also our patrol officers in doing a lot of the things that aren't necessarily law enforcement related. Getting these videos, making wanted posters, downloading the phones. I mean, it's become more and more technical. It's become more and more difficult, too. We have restrictions from our IT people because they don't want to corrupt the system that we're working on. But everything you do is, you see it on the news all the time, video of this, video of that. That's how we identify people. That's how we solve these crimes. So I'm looking for somebody. I have a whole long list of job responsibilities for them. They would help with processing prisoners. So instead of 2 officers to do it, it'd be 1 officer and the civilian investigator. It'd be helping transporting evidence. It'd be helping transport prisoners, again, with an officer instead of 2. So that takes some of those responsibilities off. That allows 4 officers added to the department to be enough. I'm trying to do it responsibly. I mean, a lot of these things can be done. We've added an evidence technician years ago because we used to have a detective do that. We added data entry because we had detectives entering their own stuff. And now I'd like to add somebody to take some of the responsibility off everybody. So this is the proposal that I've made to council. I had to meet with them separately because they can't meet more than 2 of them. And I even explained to them, I know I have to budget for this, so we're talking the end of the year. But I'm also going to ask them next month I would like to start the recruitment process now, which means if they say yes, I would like to come to you guys and ask to decertify our current list, because what I'm looking to do again is to expand our pool of candidates. I mean, I think we've done well with minority hires, with female hires, but we still have a long way to go. I have 3 people that look like they're going to leave by the end of the year. So if they can give me 4 more and those 3, that's 7 new people. That gives me a chance to really make an impact, to further diversify. But I want to have more time to recruit. I want to do it during the spring and the summer when people are out. I mean, we have things set up, pop-up events. We go to, where they advertise at job sites and community colleges. We go into the city. We go to sporting events. We've got a system. And I would like to also give more time to do everything so that everything is ready to go and certified by December. So if they approve it, then in January I can hire the top people, because I don't want to keep going down the list. I want to get the best people to come here. So that's my plan. So far, council seemed receptive to it, but I know when it comes down to dollars and cents, it might be a different story. But I think I've made it clear to them, and I will continue, that not that I wouldn't be grateful for 2 extra bodies, but it's not going to be enough, and it's not going to solve the problem. It'll help, but it's not going to be enough. I'm asking for 4 police officers and a civilian because I need 4 police officers and a civilian. And that's for now. I'm not going to keep coming back every year and ask, but I'm going to do a study for the next 2 or 3 years, and depending on what that says, I'm going to come back. I'm not a kid asking for toys for Christmas for myself. I'm telling you, I think this is what the community needs. And if you don't do it quick enough, this process takes forever. If they don't let me recruit now, that means I have to start recruiting if they approve it in January, which means I won't get people till 2026. So you're going to let this fester for 2 years. That's crazy, because in 2 years it could be a whole different story. 4 might not be enough. So this is where we're at. Sweet dreams.
Can you clarify? I know you mentioned this at the beginning. Say in the last 10 years, how many additional people have we added?
In the last 26 years, we've added 2.
Okay, so there we go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and that was just recently. That's based off my last 2-year study.
Okay.
And again, when you do it in the right way, council was very receptive. I'm always fearful that I even remember approaching the chairman months after they did this, and I had nothing to do with wanting anything, and actually it was something for him. And he says, what do you want now? He said, I just gave you 2 people. They're always waiting for you to, you want more. It's like, it's not for me. Whether I'm the chief of a 20-man department or a 100-man department, I don't feel any better about myself. This isn't about, I'm not a king. This is about what is needed here. I don't think there's anybody that lives in this area, not even in this township, that doesn't know that this township has exploded over at least a decade, if not the last few years. It just has. You see the traffic, you see the stores, you see the congestion, you see the stories about, I've had a lot of people come to me. What's with all these stolen cars, neighbors? It has that. It's picked up.
Have we compared this at all to the other township services, the number of trash people, the number of parks people, the number of, people who fix the streets? How much has that increased in the last, say, 10 years versus the police? Have you done that kind of comparison? Because that might be interesting in terms of...
Yeah. I know what it is, and I'll be frank with you, because this is my perception of what it is. I guess the township manager and the chief are the only 2 positions that are appointed by council. So even if the township manager doesn't agree with me, in a nice way, I tell her, I accept that, I understand it, I'm still going to be proposing this to council. But the township manager technically appoints or hires all those other department heads. And I've seen the other department heads. I've talked to them because they get frustrated, like Public Works, when they say, I need more people. Not only she says no, she says, you will not ask council for that. Her priority is keeping the balanced budget, which, okay, that's fine. And that's where we differ. I get that, but it's not a Fortune 500 company. We're a service. That's what we're here for, and you do have to. Sometimes you do have to. If it's a place like Norristown that's going bankrupt or just doesn't have it, I get it. You can't pull it, but you can't
So those services haven't increased at all?
They haven't increased,
Okay.
but she hasn't really allowed them. I mean, council's even asked them, do you need more people? And I see him look over at her and say no, because I know, I was there when she said, you're not asking. So they don't get the proper, they don't know.
So Chief, and I'll use Public Works as an example. They do affect quality of life. They do affect crime, and I'm going to talk about streetlights.
Mm-hmm.
It's something so simple as the streetlights are out. Replace the streetlights in your neighborhood. Lights at night deter crime because people are visible. So when you have a whole street of streetlights that are out and they're not being fixed because the personnel isn't there, it adds a workload or increases the workload, burglaries, car thefts, etc., thefts from vehicles for the police department, because we all know about the broken window theory. Everybody knows that. So I guess
Even the road conditions, when
Yes.
you think about it, the potholes.
Mm-hmm.
We had some, and I'm trying to think, Plymouth Road, that's a state? No,
Yes.
that's the state.
Yes.
But just to give you an idea of a poor roadway, there was roadway it was in the middle of being fixed, there was no rush for it, and we had somebody riding a bicycle down the road, and an elderly couple driving, it was at nighttime, and they hit, the bicycle hit this portion in the road, and it shot them in front of the other car, and he was killed. Just to give you an idea that certain things have to be addressed, so at least on our township roads, potholes, things like that. But honestly, and I've even given advice to the Public Works guy and to some of the others, I don't want to lose steam for what I'm trying to do. You know, sometimes part of me wishes, I feel bad for you, but I'd rather get my cops than you get, not that you don't need them, but you're going to have to fight your own battle.
yeah.
But that's sometimes what we're up against. And even when I have counsel is receptive, I know she has the last word when I'm out of the room. And a lot of times is you don't understand how expensive it is or this or that. And I can't even deny, I even tell her, I said, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying you still need it. It doesn't change anything. And for the people that live here, not that they wouldn't care. Nobody wants, I live here too. I don't want my taxes to go up, or I don't, want all that. But don't give me that as an excuse. I live here. This is my little piece of the pie. This is my corner of the world. I'll be retiring in a couple of years. I'm still going to be somebody who's now getting served. And I want to feel safe. And it's not that we're not safe, but we're going in that direction. I think if you see that for yourself, I mean, you come up with your own determination. Those are the facts, so anybody can decide, off of that.
Madam Chair, may I ask a couple procedural questions, Chief?
Sure.
So, the Civil Service Commission, as you know, has a list of, in order, the higher list, the eligibility list. Officer, I'm going to mispronounce Megan's name,
Wazinski.
was number 4 on that list. The next 2 would be numbers 7 and 8, Andrew Brady and Joseph Strucharge. But did I hear you say correctly, you would like us to start over and get rid of this list and start recruiting anew?
I have no intention of taking anybody off that, whether it does, if it doesn't get decertified. And, when you say, like, she was number 4 or their numbers, they weren't. We got rid of a bunch of top people.
Correct.
Unfortunately,
You hired
they were
them.
top people. I mean, no, without hiring.
Okay.
We failed them on orals, or they failed backgrounds. I shouldn't say orals. It was the backgrounds after the list. Had committed crimes. They had all kinds of issues. So realistically, the next people that are available are more like 12 from taking the test. And honestly, I don't even look at that. It's a civil service test. If somebody's number 12, I'm not going to say they're not suited to be a police officer. They could be very good. They might not have had military. They might not be great at taking a test. But honestly, one of my biggest things, and it has been since I don't make any bones about it, they're not that great, but there is no more diversity on that list. And I just want a chance to, we made all these changes you guys made the changes. We now, you don't have to have Act 120. That was huge. Now we take the top 50 instead of the top 30 to do orals on. We changed the grading, give more for the oral exam instead of the written. I even ask when we do give written tests that we make sure that we choose a test that's not overly difficult, and also they have them where they're more geared toward a diverse group of people. And I think we started with the last one where there were study guides that were available, which I thought was great for people that never took them before. And I don't know if you know this yet, but I put it in my budget and they passed it. I put that we would now start paying for the test. So where people are paying $50, $60 to take a test, we will pay that. So there will be no cost to take a test. So there might be some people out there that say, you know what the hell? I'll take it. Might be somebody who's very good at it. They don't have to be gung-ho about being a police officer. They might just have that right attitude and not even realize it, and might say, you know what, I'll take this test, as opposed to that's $60 just to sit down and I'll never get called back again. So that was another thing that we did. In fact, I know when I first became chief, council was pressing to make sure, like a lot of these departments do, that you have to have a college degree to take our test. I believe in education, but if you're going to make it an even playing field, don't make it a requirement. We have educational incentives once you get hired. So you can actually get hired and you can be paid some money to go to school, or get extra money if you complete a degree. But why cut off a whole segment of people that couldn't afford to go to college, aren't suited for that? They might have other skills. So we've done so much. I want to take advantage of it every chance we get. And this would be a great time to do it, especially if they approve these extra people. Because like I said, you're talking 7 people. The most we ever hired was when Karen and I got hired. There were 9 of us got hired at once. You're talking about a good chance. And we had a very diverse group.
Yeah.
Relatively for the times. It was... So I want to take every...
Are you asking?
Not yet, I'm not.
Yet, but you will be asking.
I will ask if you would decertify the list.
Okay.
But either way, if they don't let me do this, I'm not going to take anybody. I'd rather wait, which would be a shame, but I'm not going to take somebody who's okay when I can look for somebody that's...
All right.
Like Megan, they
Yeah,
said
okay.
she wowed them at Jeff O'Brien said that was the best interview he's done in his career. That's why I tried so hard to get her. You don't know that she'll be a great police officer, but she sounds like a very well-rounded, good person, and I think that's most of it. That's all that we do is we're people.
And she's got that emergency medical
Yeah,
background.
and not just being a woman, but she's got that diverse background.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's good. That's something that easily applies to all this. Dealing with, mental illness, dealing with, people that have any kind of emergency.
So we should wait to hear from you then before we
Yeah,
act?
if you, I should be. I think they moved the council meeting back.
Mhm.
The workshop is the 8th. Is your meeting after the 8th?
Next month?
Yeah,
I think we're the
because it was supposed to be the 1st and the 8th. Now we're the 8th and the 15th.
We're the 11th next month.
Okay, so I should find out at the workshop if they give me the go-ahead, and I'll say something to Jeff and have him ask if you guys are willing to decertify the list, and then I would immediately start advertising and recruiting.
So if they do that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll shoot you a note.
Yep.
And, we can just, respond on email, and then we can have a motion, and at our next meeting, and be ready to go if the board is so inclined, the commission,
Mhm.
excuse me, is so inclined.
Yeah.
And, we probably should go to council to search for our 5th member, again, tip of the cap to.
I was going to mention it, I didn't want to say anything yet, but
It's-
when they have I was going to put it on my workshop anyway, just to let them know. I already let Karen Weiss know that he had passed,
Yeah.
but that it's something that, unless that's not really my place. If it wants to come from you, I'll just mark it off my thing if you want.
Yeah, I can call her
Okay.
tomorrow.
Uh,
You can
yeah.
call her tomorrow.
Whatever you-
Just
We
so
can
you
both
know,
call her
she's-
tomorrow.
Madam Chair, whatever, again, I serve at your,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you.
If
whatever
it's not
you would like.
tomorrow, she's off for the next 2 weeks. That's why the meeting was moved, so just be aware of that.
I'll reach out tomorrow. Actually, we can both reach out tomorrow
Sure.
just to make sure we still have enough for a quorum. As long as we're all here, we still have enough for a quorum and we can still conduct business. The beauty of
Fine.
expanding the board.
Mhm.
I just have a question, Chief. If things move the way that you want them to, is that enough time if someone doesn't have Act 120 to be able to align that testing with getting
That's-
them into the academy.
That's the other reason we want to do it. Now, unfortunately, because I've got a budget and it's got to be approved, I don't think they'll let me hire until 2025. So I will miss the Montgomery County Police Academy, but what we've been using is Temple's Academy because they fall in the middle. So Megan's going there in May. So depending on what happens. Now, if that's the case and those people are wanted elsewhere, I might ask council to hire them now anyway, and I'll do as much stuff that they need to have done before the academy. If they're not willing, then I might have to wait a couple months for anybody that has to go to the academy. But there's no other way that I can do it unless one of these guys leaves earlier than January. So, but everything else, the testing will be done so that what I would hope is that everything is done and certified by the December meeting so that come January, I'd be ready to hire them immediately. I just don't want to take a chance, because I'm also fighting with other departments.
Yeah, I know.
You know, there's departments like Abington, I don't like the way they do it, but if they find somebody that they like in the oral, they'll call them into the chief's office and basically offer them the job before backgrounds are done or anything, because they do the consortium test, and they're beating everybody else out by taking them. But then you see what happened when you see in the news that one of their officers was just arrested. Our top people are the ones that we most wind up getting rid of on these backgrounds. It's unfortunate because they look great, but it's fortunate because we find out that they've done things that would, if they haven't been arrested for it, they've committed a crime or there's some problem, and quite a few of them. Yeah, Karen knows. You might get rid of 2 or 3 out of the top 6 or 7 people just on backgrounds. So I would never shortcut it. I'd rather take my chances. Good. And like I said, you can see what happens. So,
Thank you, Chief.
are you exhausted? I'm
no,
exhausted.
No, I could sit here for another 4 hours.
Yeah,
and just talk
don't say
numbers
that.
and crime
Yeah.
sprees. Anything else for us that you need, Chief? Anything that we can do to support you?
You know what? I purposely try and steer away from that because I don't want council to think I'm playing them. I really don't. I know that's been one of the tactics by other chiefs, and they'd have people in their ear, they'd have people come to the meeting and say we have to do something, and it's so transparent, so obvious. I think what's going on. So I don't want if they don't believe me or if they don't think it's worth the money, then I'm going to live with it. But I also gave this presentation to the police liaison committee from Carsey, and they asked the same thing, what can we do? And I said, I appreciate it, but I'd rather you didn't do anything. Let me go through the process and do it the right way, and if it's to be, it's to be. This is not, I'm not trying to slip something past them, and I don't want them to think that I am. So I think the only way to do it is the honest way. So, but you should know as the committee what's happening. I mean, I'll always every year.
Now, you indicated that this report is not publicly put out there, but the data is public, correct? Or is it not available?
Oh, no, you know what? As a police department, as a government agency, there's nothing that I should be hiding from anybody. Sure. I don't want to scare anybody. So a lot of this you'll find in the annual report that I did put online. I don't know if you've all seen that, but that's out there. It's on our website. And I am going to have town hall meetings, but I don't want to come at them like this. Like, look how many assaults have gone up. Look, like when I talk with the business community, I might key on the retails and how to better do it. If I'm talking to the residents, I might key on car thefts and what to do, or burglaries. But I also don't want to seem like I'm getting everybody to get their pitchforks and come to a meeting. But some of these things they do need to know.
So there's a fine line there, because scaring people and informing them are probably, somewhere in the middle is really important. Yeah.
It is. It's tough. And I don't like keeping it a secret, but I don't like
Somebody could
inflaming
file a
people.
right to know request.
Oh, sure they could. And I'm trying to also be fair to council. I just know when I talked to last time Chris Monero and said I'd like to present this to council, he actually asked, do you mind if we do this in private? I think purposely because he didn't want, and I get it. I mean, I get it. And of course, because I'm not looking to force anybody's hands, So I've gone overboard, I guess, trying to do that. But I'll never deny any of this or hide any of this. I mean, I don't believe in that. Certainly it's nothing that you can't talk about or show to people. I'm just not handing this out to others. I think you guys all have a right and a reason to have it. I think without this talk, a lot of people wouldn't truly understand what this means. I mean, they know things are going up, but they wouldn't understand that it's not because we're getting targeted or a crime wave. It's growth. It's natural growth, and we just have to stay on top of it.
And where we're located and the ease to get
Oh yeah,
in and out.
all those, and it's only getting that whole thing that happened with the Blue Route opening up and the 5. I think that we're headed toward that way with this Lafayette Street project and the Turnpike putting slip ramps. It's making it easier and easier, and as it gets easier, more people will build here. That whole Conshohocken Road is going to get built up at some time. It's all businesses, and Tornado owns a lot, and they're gonna build, and more people will come. It's zoned. It's not even like you can really stop it. So we at least should get on top of it, so that we don't have bigger problems. Because you can't go hire. When we hired 9 police officers, that's very difficult to get everybody trained, and 7 is going to be difficult. But I don't want to put it off anymore. So you can't get to a point where you're 10, 12 down. It's maybe in the city you can do that because you have thousands, but not here. It's too much. And anytime you have questions, please email me, call me. I'm always happy to discuss this or anything else.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Thank you
you.
guys. Sorry to keep you out so late.
That's fine. We still have a little bit to do if you want to stay. It's going to be a couple minutes, and then we'll be out of here with you. Item number 6, promotion of Officer Kearns. Chief Marciotti's incorporated that in his presentation. Under old business, does anybody have any old business they want to bring up? I actually do, and that's the annual report for council.
I spoke to Mike Clark from Rudolph Clark, and I talked to Tom Spears. It appears that the annual reports have not been done.
Okay.
So we're going to start doing it.
Okay.
Ever?
I don't want to say ever, but
Not recently?
Let me-
Okay.
I think one year I was able to finally
so
force
I
his hand.
have a
That was about
form for the annual report, Madam Chair, that I will send to you, and
Okay.
you will fill it out.
Okay.
I'll rely on the board to help me with what good works we did in 2023. We will get that prepared before our next meeting. But
Yeah.
I do have the form, and we'll fill it out.
Perfect. And we'll get that, Chief, to council just to keep you in the loop.
All right, thanks.
One thing that we did ask is that we see it first before it's published.
Sure.
New business. Does anyone have any new business? Okay, no new business. Anyone from the public? Do you have any public comment? Okay, no public comment. Closing comments. I'd just like to thank everyone again. And again, just for the record, thank Mr. Suvio for his service to not only Lower Merion, but also to Plymouth Township and everything that he's done. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 11th, same time, 6:30. So if the public would like to again join us for that, we'd appreciate it. Will we have Lieutenant O'Brien back?
I think so.
Okay. Okay.
He called me to say he hates missing these meetings. He will never miss a meeting, but he had a commitment, and so we gave him a tip of it. We gave him a pass.
Okay. So since we've gone through everything on our agenda, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting. I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.